Awesome. That was the first time we did it with an intro. Yeah. So, all right. Today we're going to talk about, I'm Samson Holmerus. Today we have Jeff with us also. We're going to talk about, we're Capital Raisers Club, and we're going to discuss about raising capital and how to utilize social media in order to attract capital. We've covered this topic a little bit before. It's an extensive topic though, because there are so many different ways, different methods, so many different platforms you can use. So yeah, super excited for this episode. And any questions that pop up during the episode, feel free to put them in the chat, the comments. That way we can address them. And yeah, so I could start. I'm going to start. You look like you're on the phone.
I've just got a text and she's it works for her, so we cancel till next week or
Awesome.
2 weeks.
Beautiful. All right, so
Chantel wants the link. So
she doesn't have the link. Okay. It's okay. There we go. I'm gonna start by saying a couple of things that I've done recently. I've been on, I think about 10, 15 calls in the past 2 weeks where I've been asked by other syndicators, other founders of tech companies and whatnot that are looking to raise. And what's so far worked best for me is when starting. Oh, there you are. Hey, Telly. Wait 1 second. I'm gonna add you. There you are. Hi. You're muted still.
Hello, Jeff. Hello.
Hi. So wait, we do intros first. We don't usually do those, but maybe we could do those.
Okay, so do you want me to introduce myself?
Absolutely. Ladies
okay.
first.
So I'm Chantal, and I'm from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And so what I do is I help people how to navigate social media, whether that's investors, real estate agents, fitness trainers. We help people understand the importance of getting people off of social media and onto their email list and to be buying their products or service or investing or whatever it may be. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Glad to have you here, Tally. Jeff, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm just here to be entertained. This is a you're going to entertain us, aren't you, Samson?
Absolutely. Today we're going to talk about utilizing capital.
There you go. Okay. I like to call myself a recovering syndicator. I have been syndicating student housing and multifamily deals for the past 12 years. And now I focus mainly on helping passive investors get into quality deals. So I work with the quality deal sponsors, making sure that I like them and want to work with them. And then I help passive investors get into those deals. And so I run a private equity fund to help people get into quality deals. And so that's what I do.
That's awesome. Super humbled and grateful to have you here, both with us today. I'm Samson. Fastest way to introduce me would be I set people free from the pain and stress of the financial rat race by guiding you how to travel the world without spending tons in expenses. I also show you how to deal with the fundamentals of finances and also how to partner in commercial real estate deals where you generate generous returns with great tax benefits. That's me in a nutshell. Today we're going to talk about utilizing social media, which has been a favorite topic for a couple of weeks now, I think. And I was starting off with sharing things that have been working for me because I've had 15 plus discussions the past couple of weeks alone where somebody has a deal, they're actively working this deal. It's either a commercial real estate deal or it's a tech company going, startup. And they're asking for funds. And a lot of the times there's no pitch decks. There's nothing really to entice or invite an investor to even invest, even if they could. So what do you all think about, I mean, that's maybe not the description of today, utilizing social media, but that's, I think having those basics would be one of the first steps to start. And once you have that, the pitch deck, what is it in for the investor? You can answer that confidently. You know the deal in and out. Then definitely start using or utilizing social media. And what would be the best ways for doing that? We've been covering this a little bit already. Using Instagram, using Facebook, using LinkedIn. Go where your audience or your investors are, and provide value. So, what are your points of view, Jeff or Telly? What would you say are great first steps? Because I've noticed a lot of people are still looking for those first steps, even though, yeah. What would you say are great places to start out? And then we can go into deeper later.
Since Telly's the expert in this field, I'm going to let her go first.
So for me, what I always tell anyone, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're a business on social media, I think it's important to, know what you want from social media. I think that we go on and we just start posting, and we really don't think about what it is that we want in return, right? So for investors, the one thing that you're probably going to want in return is emails, right? You're going to want to get these people off. You're going to want to get their emails. You're going to want to get them on some phone calls. And that's what you're going to want to do, right? Like, we're not here to entertain, so we don't want to just post and post and post and keep people on these platforms and getting these likes and these comments if we're not getting anything in return. So the one thing too is that now we have all these emails, right? But people don't know what to do with them. So that's another part of using social media, and not so much social media as using it as a tool, as a networking tool. So now I have the emails. What's the next step from the email? So maybe I don't have a deal right now, so I can't put out a deal. So what am I going to do with this email until I have this deal? So that's when a newsletter comes in, right? You can send out a newsletter, you can send out like a monthly update, something like that, or even, a small little, hey, how are you doing? Or quarterly, this is what we've been up to, right? Because we want people to know who we are, and we want to be consistent with that. So just having social media to raise capital and just thinking that it's going to stay on the platform and you're going to get investors from that is not realistic. So when people come to me, they think that I'm going to, make their pages look good, which I am. And I'm going to have people do those likes and those comments. But my goal is to always get them off the platform. And then the next step is, getting them on to a newsletter or, some kind of funnel. And then from there, when we do our capital raising webinar, I have all these emails that I have collected over the last couple months. Is that helpful?
That's super helpful. And not just going in with intention, but also, providing value when you do have captured, data, because it doesn't have to be, I mean, you could also use the same thing through phone marketing. I mean, email is also, email is maybe the first step. Would you say, about building the know, like, and trust factor, what would you say are one of the best ways of just starting that out? Because I think, Jeff, at least, correct me if I'm mistaken here, but one of your favorite ways of building that factor with a new person and building your audience is going to podcast, going to the next one, and then directing them to your, website. So that's another way of, it's not social media, but they're usually posted. This, for example, is posted on 3 social media platforms: YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, which is already building that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are, okay, once we get, well, first of all, what makes me different from anybody else? Why would somebody invest with me rather than somebody else? I mean, there's tons of other people out there. What makes me special? And that's what I need to get across to people, is why we are different. And one of the ways, we talk about people know, liking, and trusting you, and that's, what's going to help them, invest with you. Well, they got to know me first. So in order to know me, okay, so I'm on social media, I'm on podcasts, or I go to meetups or whatever, and they at least know me. They know who I am. They learn my name. And now I need to go beyond that and get them to like me, or to, to show myself, to show them behind the curtain and say, here, this is who I am and this is what my business is. And hopefully they're going to like me, and that leads to the trust, and then they'll invest with me. So the process is, how do I do that? I want to, or I always need to get more people into that, or no, more people to know me, and then I could work on the like and trust end of it, just being myself and telling them my experiences and showing that I'm knowledgeable and I know my subject matter. And by doing that, then they start trusting me and they say, okay, yeah, I really don't have the time to learn all this stuff, so I'm going to let you take care of it. And that's typically the investors that invest with us, that we're going to entrust you because we don't want to spend all those years that you spent learning the subject matter and doing all the work that you've done over all these years. I'm going to trust you that you know what you're talking about and do it. And so that's kind of the position we put ourselves in.
A great way of starting a relationship too. I mean, you're going in with that intention of, hey, let's get to know each other. It's a relationship business after all. So, Jonathan,
It is, and people invest with people they like.
yeah.
They invest with people they like, or they deal with people they like. I mean, if it's somebody, somebody could be doing the best deals out there, and if you just don't like them, you really don't like their personality, and I've got a few people on my list that I don't want to deal with because I don't like their personality, and I don't think that maybe their interest is really in the right place. And so you don't want to deal with those people, and I don't want to get on a conversation with them. I don't want to talk with them. So you want to deal with people that you can talk to. I have investors all the time, sending me emails about questions about a deal, or calling me up about a deal and asking questions. And I don't want them to be afraid to call me. I want them it to be welcoming. And I want to serve them and answer the questions as well as I can. And if I don't have the answers, I go out and find the answers for them or explain something to them. You know, and those people, those are my customers that I enjoy working with, and they enjoy working with me. And that's after you get through the social media part. That's the next step. But you got to get the people in there first to meet you.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on dealing with that first part, Chantal?
Oh, can you say that again?
What are your thoughts on? I mean, in order to build that relationship, you have to first attract them, which is intentionally why we have this as our headline for today, like how to utilize social media in order to attract capital. How do you start that kind of a process when, for instance, you don't necessarily, a lot of the investors that I've been talking with and business owners, they've been saying that, hey, how do you start that? And I keep saying, these are the ways, right? We've been covering this a couple of times, but I think it's very, very important because it's a much needed skill that, hey, how do you start that process of attracting capital, but starting that relationship, first of all, by getting noticed or by I don't know, being intentionally working on these platforms instead of for these platforms, like you like to say. So,
Yeah.
what would you say is a good place to start?
Well, I love what Jeff said is allowing people to know that we're knowledgeable, right? So taking advantage of cross promoting and being on different podcasts, right? Because we want people when we go in a room, or if they're going to invest with us, like he said, like I've done all the work, right? So now I know exactly what I'm doing. So I like that, like going on podcasts and promoting yourself and networking on these platforms. Now, the one thing that we want to do is when we're starting off is, everyone is scrolling, right? Like everyone is constantly scrolling through. So what is it? How are we going to make people stop? So sometimes people like to do a theme, whether that's with colors or they use templates or something like that. Some people will just use, you'll see that people will use a filter. So all the videos, all their photos have the exact same filter all the time. So then that way when people are scrolling through, they kind of already know your brand, right? So they know that that's you. And another thing too is using text. So if you have a property under contract or whatever it may be, just writing on that photo under contract and allowing or letting people know that we are working on things, right? So we can always lead up to things, but people want to know that we're busy. And if people don't know what we're doing, then it's harder to get them to want to invest with us, right? Like we have to, I'm a busy person. I'm looking at properties. I'm working, and then once people know you're working, they want you to work for them, right? Like they want to, invest with you, whether that's a product or a service or whatever it may be. So I always tell people, even if you're sharing a photo of your family, you can always bring that back to your product or your service in the caption, right? So just trying to make sure that, this is free advertising and that we're taking advantage of that word free, right? So every time that we're posting something, we kind of have a purpose or we're bringing it back to something not necessarily that we want, but like even going on here, just because you're an investor doesn't mean that you want all investors to only follow you. You may want to get on podcast, right? So how are you going to use social media to attract those podcasters? Is that
Exactly. Hey, this is a great segue to saying that for January, we're looking for investors that have capital raising experience that would like to share about their journeys and that would like to join on our Thursday episodes where we are interviewing investors, other operators, business owners in this space. So yeah, feel free to put that in the comments when you're watching this, and we'll reach out to them. Thank you. That was a great kind of segue into a sneaky ad. Let's let's go to the next one. What would be after you've stopped the scroll? And like you said, you're providing something of interest where, hey, I'm working on this. I'm not working. I mean, I'm working on this. This may be of interest to you. When do you take it to the DMs? Because that's where that's where you take it offline, right? So when is it? What would you say are the best methods of doing that without coming off as creepy? Because I think a lot of people are a little bit afraid of hitting that first DM, like, wait, am I, bothering you or whatever? But instead, you're actually providing value, right? So how would you do that? How would you take that relationship to the next step?
So for me to encourage people to go to our DMs, that's a call to action. So I'm telling people, hey, if you want to learn more, send me a DM. Or if you want to do this, read more of my blog or whatever it may be. I'm always having a call to action. So there's always a call to action for people to want to communicate more with us. So always having that call to action. And then so now if I want to hit someone else up in their DMs, right? I'm going to look for the opportunities where I can ask them a question. So if they have a post that's educational, I may go in the DMs and then, kind of go a little bit more on that educational post. Or even sharing a post too. And this is something that people don't know. If you share someone that's not following you, if you share their post and you tag them in that post, now when you send them a DM, you're not going to end up in that request DM. You know how sometimes if someone's not following you and you send them a DM, you end up in that request one? If you share a post of theirs and you tag them in it, you will now just end up in their regular DM. So that's just a little trick, because sometimes what ends up happening is people will DM people and they won't get a response because people don't check their request DMs.
This is for Instagram, right?
Yeah, this is for Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, because on LinkedIn it's a little bit more simple. Thank you for that. I mean, but yeah, for Instagram it's definitely choresome when you're reaching out to people, and sometimes you don't, you know. I have those too, where I have requests and I look at them and I'm like, is that what you want to start a relationship with? Like,
I did that on Clubhouse, and then one day I just had all these requests, like messages on Clubhouse. I was like, oh.
Yeah, when you speak on, I mean, not just on Clubhouse, but other stages, it, yeah, tends to. So that brings us almost to the first point, which is, yeah, first get noticed, provide value in a way where people, you know, are more curious or intrigued about what you're up to. And then when you take it to the DMs, you can continue that kind of relationship where, hey, this is what we're working on now, and what are you up to and whatnot. But what would you say is the first best? I mean, sharing their post. That sounds like a great. I haven't even thought about that. That's a great hack on Instagram that I had never even heard anywhere before. What are the first things that you would say? For instance, um, I have several in the traveling industry right now. I mean, nomads and whatnot that are following me, and that's awesome. I mean, I'm myself a nomad, so um, I don't start those relationships by saying, "Hey, would you like to invest in this deal that we have currently?" You know, instead, it's a bit more smooth. Where, hey, I know that you've been following me for a while. Then what I do is I basically just say, "Hey, what's up? I would like to learn more about you. Let's connect." And then I send my Calendly. Looks a little bit spammy, but um, it's a bit more smooth because it's interaction back and forth. And then I send the Calendly or ask them, hey, would you happen to have a calendar? What would you say is that something that's um, preferred, or do you rather say, hey, would you like this ebook or would you like this resource? I know, Jeff, you use resources on your website where you're explaining, for instance, the difference between 506c and 506b, and difference between accredited and not accredited. Um, is what are some of the things that you give of value in order to capture those emails, or taking that relationship, it's not offline, but closer to, like, moving it along the journey.
Yeah, I mean those are educational materials that I give out, in order to capture the email address. But also I mean, most of the stuff, practically all the stuff, if somebody wanted to Google it, they could find it, you
Awesome.
know, but I'm providing it to them in a nice package. I'm making it available for them, and so they typically will reach out with an email. But that also means that maybe they have some interest in the back of their mind. Um, Otherwise they could just go out and Google it, like I said. But once they have those things, one, they see that that I have some knowledge, because when I write these ebooks, I'm putting my own commentary in it as well as the educational information. And then typically each one of the ebooks has a link to get into my calendar to have a conversation, so we could get to know each other better. And it goes back to what we said in the beginning, know, like, and trust. And so it's all part of that process of getting to know people better. And I love communicating with people and getting to know them. And then you were talking about the conversation. Once I get into a conversation with somebody, I always want to know about them first. Where are they in their journey? What are they looking for? Do they want to be an active investor? Do they want to be a passive investor? I've been talking to a gentleman lately. It just sold his business. He's got a bunch of money, and he wants to invest it. And great. Those are definitely the kind of people that I want to talk to, as well as those people that down the road would also like to be more active, that they want to be a GP in this business. And one of the ways that we all recommend learning how to be a GP is to be an LP first, to be a limited partner, first, and get to see from kind of the inside the syndication, and then maybe later on they could get themselves up into a GP. See, I've been the opposite. I've been a GP. I mean, I did start as an LP, the first investment I was in, but then I became a GP. I became the main GP in my company, and for 12 years, that's what I did. And now I'd prefer to be the LP.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly willing to let somebody else run the show, and I just use my expertise to pick and choose which GPs I want to work with, and then I'd rather be a passive investor. Let somebody else do all the work, and help them grow my money. And of course, when I bring investors in, of course, I'm helping them, grow their money as well, and it leverages my skills. And so I love that part. I love that part. So hopefully that comes across when I'm talking to people, and we could have a good time making money with each other.
That would be a great quote. Just put it on Instagram somewhere. We could have a good time just making money with each other. Like, sounds so
Hey,
fun.
let's grow our wealth together.
Exactly.
It
It doesn't have to be more difficult than that. Just start the relationship, right? Chantal,
Yeah.
what would you say are some of the ways that you initiate that first conversation to take it offline?
Yeah, you gave like two examples. Like you said that sometimes you have to know who you're messaging to, because some of my investors, they'll get people right off the bat that will say like, "Hey, I want to know if you're in this deal," right? So knowing the relationship that you have with that person, because sometimes that's our call to action is, "Hey, if you have any deals that you think I'd be interested in because we're looking for deals, let me know." So if someone has that, you could go in and say like, "Hey," and take that opportunity. I have this deal. And whether they or not they invest with you or whatever, you're still building that relationship. And the key is building relationships. So people will come in, and it may not lead to something now, but it may lead to something down the road. So just take those opportunities when people do communicate with you to answer back and to build that relationship, because you never know where that relationship is going to go, years down the road. So my thing is though is take advantage of every DM. Yeah. And I mean, like sometimes we get, DMs that say, "Hey, do you want to grow your following?" Or, "Hey, I'm selling pancakes." Obviously you don't have to entertain all of those ones. But any ones that are within your niche, try to entertain them and build those relationships, even if people are small, because, when they grow bigger, they're going to remember the person that, gave them that chance in the beginning.
That's an excellent, excellent way to start. Also, I had one of the, I had a very enthusiastic person that said, "Hey, I made 10,000 in half an hour, and it was great." And then I said, "Whoa, stop for a minute. Is this, I think you need to learn the fundamentals of finances first. I mean, that doesn't make sense. Fast money, whatever. All you need to do is click on this, right?" I indulged in it for a while, saying that, "Hey, I don't think you know how this works, like money part. You should hop on my calendar." They were saying, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, you definitely, I could help you out. You don't sound like, everything is in order. It sounds very, aggressive, almost, what would you say? Like you have to have something. Like maybe I can help you out." They didn't hop on my calendar, but it was the first time that I got a laugh out of one of those that are just spamming Instagram DMs. What would be, wait, we're halfway through, so we could maybe, yeah, now I know. Next Thursday, this upcoming Thursday, we have an interview one-on-one with Jeff Greenberg. And if you haven't seen it already in the email, yeah, you definitely should join our interview on Thursday. And we're going to go deeper into how it is to be an active GP, and also how it is to manage other people's investments, because that requires some skill as well. So super excited for that. Stay tuned.
I just wanted to add one thing. Just going back to like Instagram, Clubhouse, and even this live. I think before, when we think of social media, I think a lot of people just think of like, putting family photos and friends and what we're doing, where it's so much more than that now, right? And there's a wealth of knowledge. And I always tell people, don't be afraid to send someone that, gives you value, and you have a question, that you want answered. Take advantage of this, and asking questions. And especially like on Clubhouse, the knowledge. I don't know if anyone's on Clubhouse or who's in the audience is on Clubhouse, but if you are on Clubhouse and you've ever been in a room with Jeff, he is a load of knowledge, right? Where we didn't have that before, where you could just go and raise your hand and ask these, people that are at the top of their game with all this knowledge, the questions that you may think are basic. So I think that social media is a great way to get a mentor for free. Really, like, you have all of these people, you have all of this wealth at your, like, right at your fingertips. So I think sometimes we don't take advantage of that. And sometimes we'll go in rooms, or we're like, go on TikTok and we're scrolling through things that are really not making us any brighter. Where there's a wealth of knowledge on these platforms, and we should be taking more advantage of.
I love what you said, because I sit there, I go on Instagram and watch all these silly things, and then I go and I look at the clock and I say, "Are you kidding me? I wasted that much time looking at some of this silly, I mean, funny stuff sometimes, but man, you can get sucked into wasting so much time
You
on useless garbage."
And you're absolutely right. You and I think, and I mean, if anyone's heard me talk, I think once we get that, that's what these platforms want, right? They want us to kind of get lost in, and then kind of like an hour later, you're like, I just watched like 5 cat videos, right? Like, cute, but whatever it may be. But that's the point of like the scroll and just kind of going through. So I'm on Instagram all day, every day. Like, that's just my line of work, right? So I can see a lot of things, and I can see what works and what doesn't work. And I have to, for me to be successful, I have to not suck into those temptations of going through those videos. I can see Jeff just shaking his head. Teach me.
Yeah, you just get, yeah, you definitely get sucked into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely need some help on getting the best use out of some of these platforms, because in the past, all of my investors were almost all face to face, except for my being on podcasts. The podcast was the only non face to face. The rest of it was pretty much meetups, conferences, boot camps, anything like that. Different face to face events. I did do some blogging, where I would answer a lot of questions on Bigger Pockets, where I got to be known on Bigger Pockets, and that kind of got me into my first podcast. But yeah, I really have not been active on social media effectively, and so I'm doing two things right now. One is I'm preparing the back end to prepare for, hopefully would be an onslaught of interest or people, you know. But basic, and then I need to do that other piece, is to get people to come in to get into my funnel. So I need the deal magnet, or the magnets to bring people in, the interest in, but I want to make sure that my back end is all ready to receive that, so it isn't overwhelming to me.
Yeah. And I think that's great, because a lot of people come to me and they don't have that. So it's like, it's great, but if I have nowhere to send people, it's almost, there's no need for me. If I can't send someone, to get on a phone like sometimes people will come to me and they don't even have a calendar. Like they don't have a calendar. I'm like, well, I just can't just give out your phone number and then just, have someone call you. Like, these are things, just the basic things sometimes we don't have, but we have to have something. And at the end of the day, it is to take that relationship to the next level. Because you're absolutely right. Like, for me, I always want to get on a phone call because, I love what I do, but I want to get to know the person that I'm going to be working with, right? And I want to get to know everyone on a personal level. But, we can't just stay on social media and think that, we're going to have investors. People are just going to come to us. If, we have to have a purpose. What are we posting? Who are we targeting? And, and understanding that they're people. Like they're not numbers, right? Like that email list, there's someone behind that email list. And the only thing that we want is like, hey, now you're a number on Instagram. I don't like, but you're a person. Now you're, an email, and now you're an actual person I'm going to meet or I'm going to get on a phone call with. Like that is always the goal, because no one is ever going to probably invest with you without having, a conversation with you one-on-one.
Well, and it's like the people that go to a conference and come home with a stack of business cards. And I used to be one of those people, and I had drawers filled with big business cards, and I'd put them in a list, and then they would kind of die there. It would die on that list. I mean, I just did a big purge a while back, of 400 people that hadn't opened one of my emails for who knows how long. And I just kept writing to them, and there was no response. And I said, okay, they're of no use. They're not going to respond. So I did a big purge. Yeah. I didn't want to pay for the next level up on Active Campaign. But the thing is those, if those people weren't interested, that's fine. I want the people that are interested in what I have to offer. And yes, you have to get them in, and you have to nurture them. And, a lot of times when we meet people at conferences or different events or whatever, we don't follow up. We don't follow up with them. I'm very guilty of that. I'm sure we're all guilty of that. And we've got to get where we're following up, nurturing them. Maybe we'll do something with them. Maybe we won't. Maybe we could help them. You never know. Maybe you could refer them to somebody else. I'm a strong believer in giving, and it comes back. You give, and you never know when somebody refers somebody to you for something else. I have a good friend of mine who's extremely successful, has a great syndication business, and I refer people to him all the time because he has a lot of deal flow, and I didn't have my fund up and running at the time, so I didn't really have anything to offer him. And then he would send back, all of a sudden I'd find people coming to me and say, hey, can you coach me? So and so said that you're doing coaching. And all of a sudden I was getting these people because he didn't have the time to do coaching. And so I never expected that. I never asked for him to do that, but we had mutual respect for each other. And so those are very cool things. Yeah. Just my 2 cents.
What would you say are, for instance, now, Chantal, like you were saying that you're gaining a lot of not just followers, likes, but DMs, or you're gaining that, but you don't have a place to send them. So for the ones that are looking to utilize social media, I mean, the next step, I'm circling back to what we were talking about earlier, where you're taking this relationship offline. In that process, what would be the next most important next step after having had that initial conversation that, hey, now I know this is where you're heading, you know where I'm heading. Maybe we're not right now, at a point where we're going to do business together right now, but you were saying key is in the follow-up. So what would be some good ways of following up on that kind of a relationship?
Well, and that's key, because I think, and I'm sure that Jeff will agree with this, is like how much business do you get from following up, right? Sometimes, you know, we people get busy. So I'm a strong believer. I have a day on my calendar where I just follow up. I have a list of people, and then I just send those follow-up emails. And it always starts the same. Like, you know, I understand things are busy. I just wanted to follow up, and this is where I am, and I want to know if you were still interested. Or I'll go on their social media and I'll see, like, you know, I see that you're still at the same, you know, place where we last talked. Do you want to jump on another call or whatever it may be? But it is important to follow up. Now, if people don't have that, like some people, they don't know. I'll talk to people like, I don't have an email list. I don't have a website. I don't really feel the need to have an email list, because you have to think I deal with a lot of small businesses as well. So I'm like, okay, maybe you don't have a website. A website can be expensive. You can do a website on your own. There's lots of like GoDaddy, Wix, whatever it may be, but that's a totally different topic. But collect them and put them in a Word document until you're ready for them. And sometimes it can be something as like a monthly quote, just like, hey, you know, the 1st of December, I'm hoping everyone has a great holiday, and here's like, you know, a quote or something, right? So at least the people are knowing who you are. So you don't have to have all these big funnels, but you do want to have something to lead up to them, right? Like you do want to have goals. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was laughing because I put in the comments, speaking of websites, check ours out here, www.capitalracesclub.com. We recently made our website, so but you have to have a point with it, right?
I think there's a lot of good things, and the one thing that I really like, and something that Jeff's has, is I love an ebook. You know, and sometimes, you know, people like, I don't have time to write. You can always get a ghostwriter. You can always get someone to do these things for you, or a blog. Like there's blog writers out there, there's copywriters out there, there's lots of things, or lots of like services that can help you do these things. But, you know, for us to grow, we have to invest in ourselves, right? So whether that's, you know, the time or the money, but we have to be doing something to, you know, educate people or have some kind of funnel, because a funnel is always going to be important for growth. And at the end of the day, like we want to get to know these people on a personal level. Whether it's a friendship, you never know what this relationship will lead, a business partner, a future business partner. We just don't want them just to stay on these platforms.
Exactly.
Now, my question is, what social media platform do you guys like most?
I think I'm biased because, I mean, LinkedIn, of course, by far. One email on Instagram or on email or on Facebook is worth about $1. That's the average worth of email from your ads, from your campaigns and whatnot. Meanwhile, the same campaigns on LinkedIn, it's $4 or $5 per email. So that tells you where you're going to make more out of those relationships. So for me, I'm just going strictly by the numbers. Analytical in that way.
What about you, Jeff?
You don't want to hear my answer.
Can I guess?
Okay, go for it.
I don't know. I'm gonna guess Clubhouse.
Well, you're actually right. I do like Clubhouse. I when I was thinking of my answer, I wasn't even thinking about Clubhouse. I was thinking of all the other social medias that I don't like and that I don't like to participate in. And Clubhouse actually became the first one I enjoyed. That I could go in and actually talk to people. And you're absolutely right. Yeah, I would rather go on Clubhouse and be able to actually directly communicate with somebody than to actually create something and put something out there, and you know, either a video or whatever, to go that route. It's much, maybe because I just haven't hired a VA yet, or I haven't hired you yet to do those. Maybe once I hire you to do it for me, then I'll like the platforms a lot more. It's just trying to do it myself just is not exciting.
And you know, that's something too, is that we don't have to be experts on every platform either. And I think that people think that, like, you really just need to be good on one, because everyone is on the same ones. We need to be active for sure on every platform, but we don't have to, necessarily have big followings on every single one. And you have to, to be successful, you have to do the one you like the most, right? And I think that's why Jeff is so good on Clubhouse. And I've been in rooms with him, and people just follow him. And if I see him in my hallway, I go and I follow him because I know I'm going to get value. And for me, even though I'm not an investor, I have to make a lot of content, blogs, whatever it may be for investors. So that's where I'm getting my knowledge, writing it down. And then I have an idea for a blog or a LinkedIn article, right? So yeah, so I appreciate that part of you, Jeff. But you have to take advantage of this, of social media, right? And whether it's Clubhouse, for me, my go-to is either going to be Clubhouse or Instagram. And why for me? Because I think LinkedIn is really niching it down. And because I deal with a lot of niches, I find it easier to be on Instagram because I constantly have people DMing me, asking me questions or wanting to get on a call or be coached or audits, where I don't really get a lot of that stuff off of LinkedIn. But I do have a LinkedIn. I know how to navigate LinkedIn, but I don't need to have a big LinkedIn presence for myself. So my goal is to have a big LinkedIn presence and getting those contacts for my clients. And that's how I know how to navigate the platform, is because I do it for my clients.
I would like to address that. When you're looking at people's link, or when you're meeting with somebody for the first time, and this ties back to platforms, right? So a lot of people that I meet with, if I check their LinkedIn, it's one story. Instagram, a completely different story. Their website, something else, right? So, yeah, it's, at least from a business standpoint, it's kind of easy to just, okay, this is the kind of relationship, this is the kind of person, this is where you're heading. It's kind of easy to figure it out. Meanwhile, what I found on Instagram is sort of like, okay, so you like beautiful places, all of these other things that are not necessarily, I mean, I'm not talking about the post that you do, because you do it perfectly, where you're talking about things that are of value to the audience, that attract the right kind of audience, right? But that's what I found to be one of the best parts about LinkedIn, where it's sort of like, hey, this is a website. Even if they don't have a website, their LinkedIn is a website. Like, this is the best way they want to project themselves out to the marketplace. So it makes it much more sense from that standpoint, that, hey, of course I'm going to check you up on LinkedIn first. Of course I'm going to work on my LinkedIn like nobody else. Like, that's where I'm going to put my attention, because yeah, those are my 2 cents.
And I think you're right, but I think sometimes what ends up happening with Instagram is that people have more of a personal page,
Yeah,
than a business page. Hold on, sorry. So sorry, I have my cleaners comes up to my dog in the basement. So what I think is that we have a personal page, and a business page. So they're totally different. So any one of my clients, they have their personal pages and then they have the business pages, or we have both, but there's a percentage, like we do 70-30 or 80-20, right? So 20% is personal, and then 80% is kind of going back in that investment part, right? And where LinkedIn, it's almost like people are just going to follow you within your niche. LinkedIn really niches it down. But what I like about Instagram is that you have the opportunity on Instagram because it's more personal, right? So not a lot of people share a lot of personal stuff. They're beginning to do it now, but not as often as they do on Instagram. So you can really build that relationship by commenting on, someone's personal post, right? Like, if that makes sense. Like, one thing I don't like about LinkedIn is the birthdays. I don't know, because I deal with so many LinkedIns, and then it just floods my comments, right? Because everyone's like, they just press that wish a happy birthday.
yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, it's just knowing the difference of a personal account and a business account. And if you can really get that balance in, and then just follow people within your niche, it's going to be really easy. So if you go to any of my clients, they're not like, we don't follow our family members, we don't follow anyone else, we only follow people that are investors or podcasters or whatever our niche may be, and then they have personal pages for all that personal stuff, right? Because we have to think that when we look down our feed, like, not only do we want that feed to be valuable too, right? Like, we want to see the opportunities that other people are putting out. Now, if we're just following our friends and our family, those are going to end up on our feed, and we may miss those other opportunities, if that makes sense.
It's also, I mean, you choose what you want to see. So people who are a little bit disappointed in their feed are like, so what kind of, what kind of content are you engaging in? That's what the platform is going to be. Oh, wait, you like this. So let's give you all of that stuff. So that's why a lot of funny videos sometimes.
But yeah, you know what?
You're
absolutely right. Because I have another client who loves space. Like, he absolutely loves space. So we don't follow people with space, but it always just ends up on our feed or on our discovery page, because he's always looking. So I had to ask him, like, can you just look at the space stuff on your personal page? Because it's really making me, because that's what we do. And the key to growth for anyone is always going to be engagement. It's always going to be leaving those comments, leaving those likes on other people's posts. So going to your home page or to your search page and looking at those on your discovery page that are not following you, or, following hashtags on LinkedIn, or even typing in investor hashtags on LinkedIn and see what all those other investors are posting, and then going down there and then commenting on that stuff. If your avatar is tech, going under the tech hashtags. I find that the tech geek hashtag gets me, like, good result. So I'll go in there on my tech person and I'll just start commenting on those people, right? Because I want tech people to follow me. I want tech people to invest with me. My LinkedIn is going to be about real estate and tech, right? So I have the investors on the real estate side, but how do I get the tech people that have not invested? How do I get them to my page? Right? So knowing that avatar and how you're going to attract them to your page.
LinkedIn is, in that sense, a little bit of a different beast altogether, because a lot of this is actually perfect, how to utilize social media. So one thing that I've noticed in my LinkedIn feed is that one of the best posts, the contents of the posts matter. So when you're targeting, for instance, tech, you have to have relevant hashtags. And what works on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, a lot of other are that you're putting, I don't know how long of a so many hashtags, right? On LinkedIn right now, if you put best of all, is actually not putting any hashtags if you have that kind of clout. But while you're building and while you're building your audience and your following, just putting the most relevant, close enough kind of hashtag. So for tech, it will be something like innovation, or creativity, or entrepreneurship, or something similar, where a lot of people will go to those, and you see that, hey, this is how many followers this one has. Entrepreneurship, for instance, I don't know, 50 million people following that kind of hashtag. But if you put more than 5, what I've noticed is that your post is not going to be visible on any of them. It severely reduces your reach. I'm not saying that reach is the most important. I would say content and engagement is more important.
Well, your reach is important too, because we want to get people that are not following us. We want to use these little tricks like hashtags to bring us to our page. But one thing I think people do is they use hashtags, but they don't follow hashtags, right? So making sure that you follow those hashtags, because when you follow a hashtag, now that hashtag ends up on your feed. And even though you're not following with that person, it gives you a great opportunity to engage with people you're not following. So I think it's important to follow hashtags. And another thing, doesn't matter what platform you're on, your hashtag has to be relevant to your post. So if you're, a real estate and you're just, you don't have anything about real estate in your caption, or, you know, kind of scans through your picture and it doesn't say anything about real estate, they're not going to send it out. So we have to remember that LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, they're scanning all of our content, right? They're scanning it to make sure it's appropriate. They're scanning to make sure it goes to the right place. Because, you know, if we just use the love hashtag, which is millions, and it doesn't relate to us, they don't want that going to people that follow that hashtag, if that makes sense. So you want to really make sure that your hashtags are relevant to your post. Because some people, what they'll do, because they're big hashtags, or they use like fitness, love, quote, they'll use all those hashtags because they think they're big hashtags, so they're going to get a bigger reach, when that's not the truth. You probably get more reach from smaller hashtags if you're a smaller account, right? So you have to know how many numbers you have, and then kind of do your hashtag strategy according to your numbers. Yeah. Because we want to be on that homepage. And if you have a small number and you're using a small hashtag, then you have the opportunity to be on that homepage. Once you get on that homepage, now you have the opportunity to be on people's discovery pages.
Awesome. Hey, Jeff and Chantal, what would you say is something that you'd wish you'd known 5 years ago when it comes to growing your social media for business? What would you wish? I mean, we can't really go back, but what's something that's very, very important that you've learned in the 5 years that you highly recommend focusing on for somebody looking to scale their social media and attract capital?
Well, I mean, in the past 5 years or so, I really have done very little in the area of social media. And so, I mean, obviously, I start to appreciate the value in it, that it's makes everything more scalable. So I've been doing it the hard way, one-on-one, personally meeting everybody. I've known for years networking is extremely important, but I've been doing all that one-on-one and chasing people around, going to different events, going to meetings, going to conferences, all of that. Where I guess going on podcasts, I was trying to get people to come to me, but I wasn't doing that all that well either, because something I've learned is even going on podcasts, I need to have a purpose on the podcast. I need to have, typically just going on a podcast and the host will ask, well, how do we get a hold of you? And I give them my email address and my website. And if you're lucky, maybe one, maybe two people will contact you. It wasn't with purpose of saying, okay, hey, I've got an ebook, or I've got something, I got a freebie for everybody in the audience, or something to actually entice people to actually take some action. There was really no call to action, I guess. And that's probably something that is extremely important, is doing something to call people to action, to get them to do stuff. If ultimately you're trying to get an email address so you can start getting to know them and they can start getting to know you, if they don't ever contact you, they're never going to get to that point. They're never going to get to know you. They're never going to get to trust you or anything else. So you got to get the call to action, and I would say that would probably be the step that I've missed for all those years.
That's a great one. Call to action, and also go in with a purpose when you're going for interviews and events. What would you say, Chantal?
If I had 5 years ago, I would tell myself to start. Like I wish I would have started sooner, because I think I would be a lot farther. But I guess that kind of goes with anything. But I can tell you what I've learned in the last 5 years is I've really learned how to make these platforms work for us, right? And knowing that at the end of the day, this is a business, right? And I don't want to be, I want Instagram, LinkedIn, I want them to be a part of my business, but realize that they're not my business, that I'm not in the business of social media, that it's just a tool that I help people be successful with, right? And I think that when we're navigating social media, if we're doing it the right way, we always have to be able to answer this question. If social media went down tomorrow, would you still have your business? Would you still have your contacts? Because there's lots of people with lots of followings that if something happened to these platforms would have nothing. So that's why it's important to take these relationships off of these platforms. And even if you need them for later, just taking them off and keeping them somewhere. So it's almost like when you go, you're buying a house, you stock up your money, right? You save your money, save these emails. So when you are ready, you have something to use. But at the end of the day, we have to have these platforms work for us. We can't work for them. And so by us just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and then by us keeping people on these platforms, we're working for them and they're not working for us.
Awesome. Hey, where can we find more about you, Jeff? Like you said, do you have call to action, something of,
Yeah, you can reach me at my website, which is synergetic.ig.com. And I'm just in the middle of trying to get my something repaired, which is my giveaway, but it's broken right now, so I have to give out an alternative link, which is synergetic.ig.com / we've got club, or excuse me, not synergetic.ig.com /sponsor, which is a guide, 46 questions to ask a deal sponsor before you go into a deal with them. Yes.
awesome.
Except you've doubled up on the HTTPs and all that.
Whoops. I'm going to.
But I did have a shortened version of that, but my shortened version isn't working. I'm fighting with my host to get that fixed.
Is it better now?
Yeah, that's better. That's the long version, so that works.
Okay. So
there's a giveaway on that. And then I also, once you get that, then I also have another one on what to ask questions about the deal. But you can get that once you get onto that list.
Awesome. Thank you. Chantel, where can we find more about you?
So I'm at designbytelly.com. So TELLIE. And that's all my social media handles. And yeah, you can subscribe to my newsletter off my website where I give out monthly tips and tricks, or you can just follow me on Instagram, again, where I'm giving tips on how to be successful on these platforms.
Beautiful. Awesome. And you can find out more about Capital Races Club at capitalracesclub.com. How beautiful. So I'm going to put it in here in the chat. Geez. The other ones were much easier because I wasn't talking at the same time. Right. There you go. So for next episode, it's going to be on next event is going to be on Thursday. We're going to have Jeff with us talking about his experiences and lessons learned. And I'm super stoked. Put the links in the comments. Oh, Hamad, we can't put them automatically in LinkedIn. Unfortunately, it doesn't allow it. But they're on the Facebook page and also on our YouTube page. So gonna fix that later on LinkedIn. Thank you, by the way. Hey, it shows that nobody's watching and Hamad is here. I don't wonder how many others are here, like just sneaking. You didn't comment. Comment more. Okay, so yeah, definitely bring your questions for Thursday's episode too, because yeah, those are always fun when we have live audience asking relevant questions, and you get to see masterminds like Jeff just work that in real time. I think that's why I like Clubhouse the most. I mean, that's what draw me to Clubhouse so much. But yeah, anyways, thank you so much for making time for this, and talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks. Thanks again, Samson. See you later, Jeff.
Bye. Oh, yeah, I'm late for a meeting. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.